How's it going, everybody? And thank you for joining me for another New York Gambler 500 build. What I got before me is a 1970 Datsun 521 mini truck. It's two-wheel drive. It was powered by what it claims to be was a 95 horse 1.6 liter engine. And the previous owner told me it spent most of its life out in Arizona. And I believe him. It's pretty good. So I'm gonna give you a quick look of what this truck is right now, give you a quick rundown of what I want to do to it for this build, and I hope you stick around. This is gonna be a fun one. So here we go. Here is the heart of this Datsun. It is a L16 1.6 liter overhead cam engine, and this label back here says that it made 95 horse. I really doubt that. Anyway, it doesn't matter either way because this motor is locked up solid. And if there's anything I learned from my D24 teardown, it's to not hinge a build on an engine that may or may not be totally locked up solid. Anyway, it's missing a bunch of other stuff. If you see here, well, that just fell apart on me right there, didn't it? But if you see right here, we're missing a distributor as well. That's an MGB distributor, so I've been told. And this carburetor is full of garbage, totally frozen up, and we're not going to move it. So rather than work to free up this engine, which may or may not be good and may or may not have made 90 horse, we're just going to replace it altogether. And if you stick with me, I'll show you what we're going to plan to do in a little bit. So the exterior of this car is actually pretty good. I think this panel is the worst of it, and I hate to say it, but I love the patina. It's got nice patina. It's just about as rusty as you would want it to be for a gambler before it gets too rusty and out of control. It's got all of its lights and all of its glass. I actually tested the headlights, they work. This is pretty much the worst of the outside rust, this little pinhole. So we'll be fixing that up, no problem. Datsun 1600, so 1.6 liter engine. It came with an extra bed, which is weird because the bed on the back is worse than the bed on the inside. There you can see Datsun written on the back, which I think is super cool. I don't know if you'll be able to see this. This is pretty close to the wall. And back at the front. Not too rusty on the top either. I don't know if you can see in the back there, but it usually really likes to pull up by the cab. And that's got a couple tiny pinholes, but you know, pretty much every other truck I've ever driven in my life is way worse than this. Here's a little look at our frame from the underside. As you can see, it's got a little bit of surface rust, but it's actually not too bad at all. And it's pretty much like this the whole way through. So I'm pretty stoked about that. Basically, what I bought here is a beautiful body with completely defunct mechanicals and a very solid frame to start building. So here is the interior of our Datsun 521. The dashboard is way cracked up, but you know, just about everything else is here and looking pretty good. It's got the original radio on it, AM only, of course. I did go in here and free up most of the heater controls, so most of the heater controls work. This seat, it has been reupholstered. It's not original. The windows roll up and down. All the doors open and close. The driver's side, or the passenger side door, excuse me, can't be opened from the outside, but that's no big deal. There are a couple tiny rust holes, but I think we'll get those no problem. Again, I usually drive vehicles rustier than this. So there you go. Here is the worst of our rust hole. It's not too bad. It's probably like one shaka wide. Got a couple more up there and a little bit more up by the driver. There you go, a little hole right there, like right under the brake pedal. But these are all on flat spots. So it won't be too tough to go through and fix all these just with some flat metal. So In terms of what we're actually going to do for this build, we are going to go for a Datsun 521 4x4 diesel. How's that? So what we're going to do here is we're just going to get rid of that Datsun L16 engine. If there's anything I learned from that D24 build, it's that you really shouldn't just sink a ton of time into an engine that may or may not even roll over. So that Datsun engine being for sale, that's going to make someone's day, but it's not what I really want anyway. So we're going to go for a Volkswagen 1.6 turbo diesel. And I like the idea of this. I think it'll be kind of fun to do this. This is a one-wire swap, an extremely simple engine. It is a 1.6 liter. I kind of like the idea of keeping it 1600. And I'd like to keep sort of a soft resto mod going. So for those of you that don't know, that kind of means just making the vehicle as good as it could have been for its time period. So even though these Volkswagen 1.6 diesels didn't really come on the scene until 1979, it's an IDI diesel with a mechanical injection pump. That's pretty old school. That could have happened in 1970. And we're going to slap that onto this car with an Acme adapter kit that's already purchased and on the way. And then we're going to hook that up to a Toyota R150F transmission and transfer case. That is a manual transmission with a right-hand drop. I'm still debating if I want to get an extra low gear for that transfer case. It's pretty easy to put it on, and there's no better point to do it than right now when it's out of the car. And all of this is going to go through Wagoneer passenger side drop 6-lug axles. That's kind of a mouthful, but the Wagoneer had Dana 44s front and rear, so those are very good off-road axles. They have a lot of aftermarket support available. This is a relatively small vehicle, a 2,100 pound vehicle, and that'll make things really easy. Another thing going on with the Wagoneer is the rear axle is not symmetrical, so it has a long side of the diff. We got a long side, let's just say like that, a long side and a short side. So what we'll do is we'll just take up the long side of the axle, make it a little bit shorter, and that way we only have to shorten one axle shaft instead of two. My friend's dad, Diesel Dave, he's actually got one of these in his yard. Both of these axles, he's going to sell it to me for a really good price, and I think we got a lot we can do with that. And all of this, we're going to lift it up on 27 by 8.5 R14 tires. That seems pretty small. I mean, the Crown Vic that we had lifted before was on 31s, but this vehicle is tiny. I mean, when you see it here, it's just barely bigger than the Rabbit pickup. So I really think that tiny tires is going to be the way to go. We're probably going to have a small body lift on this as well. And another thing that I've considered is maybe just doing a pre-runner for now. It has torsion bar suspension in the front. For those that don't know, that's a very adjustable type of suspension. You could just go under there with a open end wrench and just get 3 inches of lift just like that by tightening those up. So we might just do the rear axle and try that for this first Gambler, but I think once we have this thing all apart, it's going to be really easy to actually do, well, as easy as it could possibly be to put this front axle in. And this isn't an unprecedented idea. They used to sell various kits from a few different manufacturers that would make these things 4x4. They would usually use Dana 30 axles and Dana 20 transfer cases, all of these from CJ Jeeps. But this is all the stuff that's available. It's nearby relatively. It's a good price relatively. So that's what we're going to do. And if that interests you, I encourage you to stick around. I'll be documenting all these builds, and I hope you enjoy. Shoots.